Hello guys, my name is Simon and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we'll be looking at state management using Recoil. Basically I've created a React application. You can see all I just do is to start the application. I haven't touched anything yet, and I run the application using npm start and the application is up and running. Okay, so we are going to look at recoil state management, managing the state outside of the component itself. And I have actually used this recoil state management to build a full-blown ERP application. And so many developers are moving from Redux to Recoil. So here I'm going to show you how to manage recoil state using three important methods from Recoil. So the first thing I need to do is to install some dependencies. So let's go to package.json. So if we check our package.json, we can see this is what we currently have in our package.json. All right. So one of the first thing I need to do is to install two packages, Recoil and router, because I want to create two pages so that we can see how the state is being managed from one page to another. So I'm going to do npm install Recoil and React router DOM. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, React router DOM. Okay, I think this is correct now. Recoil. All right. However, we can still go and check the installation on the Recoil page if we click on the docs and get started. So I think I'm correct. This is Recoil, npm install Recoil. So if you look at our package now, we can see we have the React Router DOM version 6.7.0 and Recoil 076. All right. So let me go to the app. I want to remove basically everything I have here in the app. And I'm going to use empty tag. Okay. So next I want to wrap my app with the Recoil and the router DOM. Okay, so the way I will do that is to import the browser router. Okay, so browser router. All right. So let me move this inside the browser router. Next is to import the Recoil root. Recoil root. I am using auto import, and that's why you see my import is coming. So I'm going to move this inside. Okay, sorry about that. Control Z. So let me cut this line here, and it should be after the browser router. Okay, so if I go to my app, I want to save and check our console. So let's look at the browser if everything is good. So you can see our browser just refresh, and basically it should be blank because there's nothing here. Next, I want to add Bootstrap to this application, and I don't want to install Bootstrap. So I'm going to use the Bootstrap CDN. So let me just search for this Bootstrap CDN and go to the official Bootstrap page. Scroll down and let me click on the docs. Okay, I am looking for the Bootstrap CDN. I think I've seen one here. No. Okay, good. So I've seen one here, which is the link. I'm going to copy this and put it in my application here. So to confirm if the Bootstrap is working, so what I would do is to create a button. Just want to test if the Bootstrap is linked. So I'll call it example, and I'm going to give it a class name of btn dash sources. So let me save and see the outcome. Check my, you get awesome. So you can see the bootstrap is linked. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create a store, and this is where things start to get interesting. So I'm going to right click on my root and create a folder. I'll call this store. So in the store, I want to create an atom. So I'll create an atom and call it counter atom.js. Okay, so in this atom, I want to import four properties from Recoil. So I'm going to import atom. I'm going to import atom. Then use set recoil states. Use set recoil states. I'm expecting an auto import. Use set recoil state. Okay, why am I not having auto import? Let me see. Use set recoil state. Then use recoil state. Import use recoil state. Use recoil state. And one more, that should be import use reset recoil state. All right, so basically you can see we've imported, let me remove this here. We imported four properties from Recoil: the atom, the use recoil state, the use set recoil state, the use recoil state, and the use reset recoil state. All right, so basically what these properties are doing is atom is going to set like a property, like a default property and a key, so that it will be the one to hold the state. And what use set recoil state is doing is it sets the state and send the current state to every property that is connected to the atom. Then the use recoil state is basically the current state of the atom, and why the use reset coil state is to set the state to its default state. All right, so basically you can get all of these and read about it in the recoilJS.org website. So you can look at the basic example we have here. All right. So if you look at this, you can see an atom, right? You can see what they are doing here. They are creating like a constant, a test state, and creating an atom, set a key value, and a default value. So what I'm going to do, since these are from the same um import, I'm going to move all of them to the first one. So I'm cutting this and putting them here. All right, so I'm going to define my atom. So I'm going to call my atom counter state atom, which will be equal to an atom. An atom needs some property, which is the key. For the key, you can call it anything, but it should be unique. So I'm going to use the same text here and put it here. Then it needs a default value. So by default, my counter should be 0. But however, I can call it anything you like. Can be an array, can be anything at all. But mine is what? 0. Okay. So here's the most important part. I want to export the property of this state. So what I will do is export constant. I am going to call this set counter atom. So the set counter atom is going to equal to a function, and this function should be use recoil state. No, use set. It should be use set recoil state. So this needs a property. As you can see, it needs a recoil state of any, right? So I'm going to copy this, my atom, and put it here. Then, okay, I need one more. So this is going to be get, sorry, I need two more. This is going to be get counter atom. And the get counter atom should be use recoil state. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Then the last one is to reset the state to its default state. So this is going to be reset counter atom. Reset counter atom is going to be use reset recoil state. All right, so with this we can see we've completely finished the setup of our state management, and this is the beauty of Recoil, and that is why you see many developers are moving from Redux to Recoil. You are done with this. These are the most three powerful method from Recoil. So now we need to consume this state. How do we do that? Let me save. And okay, if we save, we look at our browser, everything should still work. It should, okay, there's still button there, everything is working. All right, so we need to create like a page. So for my source, I'm going to create a folder called pages. So in the pages, I'm going to create a file called page1. So page1.gss. Okay, so in my page1, I want to create a functional component, and I will call this page1. So what my page1 is doing is to consume the state. So to make it look a little bit good, since I already have Bootstrap installed, let me just copy some property from Bootstrap. Let me just type Bootstrap Jumbotron. Okay, it's already here. So yes, this is what I want. So I'm going to copy this. Copy this, then let me add a div first, a div of container, class name, and call it container. So in this container, I want to paste the Jumbotron I have copied. So let me format this so that it will look good. It has been formatted. So we need to fix some things. This needs like the end tag. And for the class, we need to replace it with class name. So replace this, and this. Okay, the last one. All right. So, right, I think we are good. Okay, so let me create a state here, and this will be counter and a set counter. So this counter will be use state, which by default it should be 0. All right. So what we want to do, we want to display the value of this what counter. So let me, sorry about that. Let me duplicate this line 10, line 11 rather. So in line 11, I want to display the value of the counter. So for the value of counter, I'm going to paste counter here. So by default, counter should be 0. However, we've not linked our page. So here we need to create some page. We need to link some page rather. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to import the routes. Okay. So in the routes, I want to link some page. So this should be a route, and in this route, okay, in this route there should be like a path. Okay, There should be what? A path. So I am going to call this page 1, page dash 1. I think it should be element, and the element should point to page 1 component. Page 1. Okay, so by default, we need to route like every default page to page 1. So if I put star here, it should route every default page to page 1. So let me save and see the result we get. Okay, I have saved and go back to application. You can see it has routed our page to page 1. And we can see the counter here. The counter is what? 0. So this state here, we are saying this counter is the state in page 1. So that is why if we change this, for example, I can change it to 10 and save. You can see it's now 6. So but let me make it 0. So now we need to confirm the state from Recoil. So what I will do is I'm going to call use effect. Use effect. So in the use effect, we're going to consume the Recoil state. So we need some with this method we've created in the Recoil state, we need to import them in our page 1 component. So I'm going to do import set counter. Then I think we have get counter. I'm going to copy that. IntelliSense is not picking it. So I'm going to copy that get counter. Let me see and reset counter. Okay. So for set counter, right? So I'm going to create a value set counter atom. We'll point it to this value. So we need one more, which is get counter. So what this will do is to get the current value in the Recoil state. All right, so let me change this to get counter atom. However, you can just copy this and put here and put in the use state of this page 1 component. It will still work, but I don't want to do that. It should be 0 by default. I want to change it in the use effect. And what I will do is I'm going to call my local set counter here and set the value to the get counter. And I'm going to put the get counter atom in the dependency so that if it changes. All right, so let me save and see what we get. I'm going to save and look at the browser. It's still 0. So let me change the default state we have in the Recoil. Let me give this 9 and save. I'm going to save and refresh. Okay, or even without refresh, you can see it's already showing the value 9. So let me return it back to 0 and save. You can see it has returned back to 0. You can see the state is being managed properly. Okay, so for that, the next thing we want to do, sorry about that. So the next thing we have to do, so I want to create a button, and what the button will be doing is to increment the value of counter and increment the value of counter. So I'm going to duplicate this button we have here, or let me just create my own button rather. So what I would do is create a button. So this button will be increment, and I'm going to give it a class. Okay, so I'm going to give it a class, and what this class will be btn dash sources. So I need some margin, so I'm going to m-5. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this button at the bottom, and this one should be what? Decrement. Okay, so let me save and look how it is the browser. All right, so we have increment. Let me change the color of this. This should be what? Danger. Decrement should be danger, which is red. Okay, so we need to make this button clickable so that when we click on it, it changes like the general state, and it updates the state and send the signal, send the current value to everybody that so every component that is having access to the atom. So how do we do that? So let me create a function here. So constant um let me call this increment counter, increment atom counter. Okay, so in increment atom counter, we already have the set counter here, set counter atom. So what we'll do, we'll call the set counter atom, we'll get the previous value, and we'll return the previous plus one. Okay, so I'm going to do almost the same thing for the decrement atom counter. Decrement atom counter. So what I'm going to do is get the set counter, get the previous, and deduct it by one. So now we need to tie this function to the button here. So for the button, on click, we want to do this. We want to increment. Let me correct this. On click, we want to increment the counter. Want to increment the counter, and and for this, for decrement, we want to on click, we want to decrement the value of the counter. Okay, so let's try this if it will work. Let me correct this spelling. Decrement, it should be decrement. Okay, I think it's good now. Okay, so I'm going to save and go back to the browser and see if everything is okay. So I'm going to click on increment. You can see it's increment by one, it increment by two, it increment by three. So this is the general state. This is like the main the recoil state. So if you look at the code here, you can see what is happening. So whenever the state has a new value, it sets the counter here. That is why you can see we can increment and decrement. We can increment and what decrement. But whenever you refresh, it goes to the default stage, which is zero. So you can increment and what decrement. So now, what if we change to a different page? Let's see if the data will still persist. So let me create another page and call it page 2. So I'm going to call this page 2.gss. So in the page 2, I will just copy everything I have here and put it in page 2. So in the page 2, I copied this, so I need to change the name. So I will call this page 2, and okay, page 2. All right, so let me call this page 2 welcome to page 2, and in page 1 I should also change it to welcome to page 1. Okay, so call this welcome to page 1. All right, so I need to include that in our app.js. Okay, so let me change this to page 2 and change here to page 2. Okay, let me add like a button. I think we have an extra button here, and this button, let me just, how can I move a user to a new page? Okay, okay, we can use the navigate from this. So let me call this navigate, and we can call use navigate from React router DOM. So we're gonna define a function. This should be go to, and what go to be doing is what go to do. So I think we need to pass some URL. It's going to be navigate to URL. Okay, so let me correct this. Okay, so we need to use this function here. And so since this is page one, and what we want to do is to call that function. Okay, let me remove the role here and the href. So I will just make this a div, add a function on click. So on the on click, I want to do go to, since this is page one, I will do go to slash page two. Page two. I'm going to copy this and do the same thing for page one. So I'll just go to page two. Okay, so let me just copy all of this button and replace the one we have in page two. So page two, I'm going to replace this, paste my own. So this one should be go to page one and change the direction to go to page one. So the go to function is missing. I will just copy that and paste it in page two. Okay, so the navigation is missing. So all I will just do is copy this and paste it here. All right, so we need to import the use navigate. Okay, it has been imported. All right, so if I save and go to the browser, so if I say go to page two, this is what? Page one. So go to page two, you can see we are in page two. So if I increment in page two and I click go to page one, you can see it's still four. So the state is working perfectly. So I can also decrement in page one, decrement page one and go to page two. It's still the same thing. However, if you refresh, it goes back to the default stage. So now, what if you want to get value and set the state from an API call? So what you need to do is to use effect. You know, your use effect. In your use effect is where you make an API call, and in the API call, let me give some space. So you can call this value here set atom. Maybe for example, you are trying to get like a counter from a server. So once the server is successful, you can just pass the value here. So you can see maybe 800 from the value of your server. Or if it's a list, you can pass in your list here. Yeah. So it will update the current state. So basically that is all. Okay, but there is something we've not touched about, which is the reset recoil state. So let me just do an example of this one quickly in page two. So in page two, um, this should have a closing tag. This should have a closing tag. Or am I missing something? This should have a closing tag. Okay, let me do this in page. Let me do this here to avoid confusion in page one. All right, so what I will do is to reset atom state. I will call this reset atom state. Reset atom state, and in the reset atom state we want to reset the general state. So what we just need to do is to use this. So I'll call this reset counter atom. Is to call this here, right? And once we call this, let's see what will happen. Let me add this to a function. Let me add this to a function. Let me add this to a function. So I'm going to add one button at the bottom here and remove this. Remember, this is page one. So in page one, we want to, I will call this reset to default. to default. And let me change the color of the button. This should be primary. Okay, so this is page one. I'm going to save and let's see what we'll get. So go to page one. So in page one, you can see the counter is one. I will just reset to default. So it has reset the general state to default. I can increment and go to page two. You can see page two is five. Go back to page one. Then in this same page one, I can reset to default. Go back to page two is still zero. Go back to page one is zero. You can decrement and reset to default. So that is all. This is a very clear example for you. I have used this to build a very huge software, and I hope you find this useful. So if you find it useful, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe for more videos. I'm going to be creating more videos on state management and different web development. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in another video.